So I thought I'd make another video talking about Evan and mana weaving, since I think it's like pretty well demonstrated, but it's not terribly well explained, and it gets a bit annoying to dig through the Evan Discord as well. So I think just having a video resource would be nice. Uh, yeah, and I'm not feeling lazy or something. So basically, mana weaving on Evan can be broken up into two different parts. The first part is the fact that our return skill will actually cancel our mana burst animation uh, if you cast it during like the second half, and it'll make it so you can actually get more mana bursts out. And kind of to show what that looks like, if you just held mana bursts like this, you can see that there's like a certain delay in between each of them. But if I was to return, I can get two off like extremely quickly. And so if I was to show that in a BA, well, first off, like when you hit a mana burst, it's going to be 2 hits. So if I was to compare 2 hits here, it takes like over a second of just like holding it, as opposed to, let's see if I can do this quickly enough. Yeah, less than a second there, and I got both the manas off. I don't know if that was too visible, but you can slow down the video or something and notice how much quicker it comes out. So yeah, that's the first part of mana weaving. It's the fact that our return will refund part of that like animation time. And then the second part is the fact that when you normally summon fusions, you have to activate these circle skills that have a pretty long animation and also have pretty terrible ratios. So if you look at the damage number on like Thunder Circle, it's like 170 for 5 hits, or like 321 for 5 hits, as opposed to a Mana Burst, which is 8 hits of like 500. So Mana Burst is just a lot more damage, and if you look at their skill descriptions, you can actually get the fusions to trigger without without seeing the animation. Like casting Mana Burst before Thunder Circle will not prevent the fusion skill from triggering. So essentially, if I was to Earth Dive and to weave properly, you can see that there was like no animation for the like the circle skill. So yeah, basically in combination of those two parts, you can gain a lot of like FD just by applying weaving. Both in like basically in like the number of mana bursts you can get off, it'll go up significantly. So if I was just to like demonstrate for a bit, kind of looks like this, right? So yeah, and so I guess the order of inputs for like the way you're for the way to weave or whatever is that first you want a mana burst, and then you want to cast your mirror skill, and then during the second half of your mana burst, you want to input the circle skill so it is cancelled by the mana burst. The way that you identify, or at least the way that I identify the second half of the mana burst, is by like this like mana burst source up top. So if I was to TP, you can see like both halves, but this first half won't have like that top bit, but the second half will. Yeah. So basically, this circle skill needs to be cast during that latter half. If you wanted a time frame on like when that would be, I believe it is 240 milliseconds after you initially cast Mana Burst. That wouldn't be on attack speed 9 here though. that would be on attack speed 4. So I'm counting upwards here, where attack speed 10 is what is commonly called attack speed 0. But if you wanted to adjust that to that 240 milliseconds to like attack speed 10, that would be 150 milliseconds. So somewhere around there. It does get a bit funky since the server tick rate is like 16 milliseconds, as well as like your frame rate probably. But yeah, it's just a general figure if you wanted to like time yourself or whatever. Yeah, so that's the input sequence. And so when you're kind of linking two of these weaves together, so let's say Earth Dive and Thunder Circle, you're going to want to find like a certain pattern that works for you, where you're always going to cast that return. So as I was describing like the first part of the mana weave, you want to cast that return right as you are getting a mana burst out, so you kind of get that double mana. So this is going to be different for different people, since some people play on AS10, some people play on AS9. Like, I'm on 9 with a CD hat, so I have a certain pattern that I can use. But yeah, so for me personally, it becomes like 4 mana bursts per fusion. And so I will return cancel like that 4th mana burst. So I can quickly demonstrate. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So the only reason why I can have this rotation of 4 mana bursts per is because of my -2 hat. That actually reduces this Dragon Breath cooldown to 6.21, I believe. Otherwise, like if I wasn't wearing this hat... Oh my god, still hitting. If I wasn't wearing the hat, like what'll happen during the second rotation is that this Dragon Breath won't be up in time. Oh, I got a CD skip. GG. Anyways, you'll see that like there's gonna be like 0.7 seconds left, and basically you'll have like dead time. But yeah, you need to kind of just find what works for you. I'm not exactly sure like how many manas you're fitting if you're on AS10 and everything, but as long as you're returning at the proper time where you can get that double mana off every single time, it's pretty significant that you time it correctly, because the overall animation length for a mana burst is, on AS4 it is 750 milliseconds, but if you're doing the cancel, the earliest you can get out of that mana burst would be 240 plus 120, so like 360. You're basically cutting the animation in like by over half, so you'll fit like a lot more mana bursts than yeah. So that's kind of what mana weaving is conceptually, and so the FD gain on this is kind of up for debate because it kind of depends on like how shit you are. um, I would say at minimum it'll be like if you execute properly, it'll be at least like 3 to 4 FD, and it can be upwards of like I don't know, like 10 if you're shit. But yeah, it's hard to judge, but it's definitely something that you should consider doing if you're invested in the class. The next thing I kind of wanted to talk about that goes along with this is like how you should be summoning Spiral. So it can definitely be used during like filler time, but the Spiral can also be fit into the weave at the same time. And so to demonstrate that, like I can get all 3 out at the same time there. The Mana Burst, the Fusion, and the Spiral. The main thing for Spiral is that they're It's actually like 2 ways that it can be cast, and one of the ways will drop hits. So, and by ways, I just mean like the timing of it. So if you cast Spiral too early, what you'll realize is that you'll lose the second half of your mana burst and only get 4 hits off. But if you wait the um, like 240 milliseconds or whatever on AS4, then you'll actually get the 2 hits off. So you never want to actually summon it too early in the mana burst animation. And so while weaving, it will actually hiccup you a bit. And by hiccup, I mean there will be like a cast delay between the mana you summon on and like the mana afterwards. So I summoned too early there, but once my cooldown's back up, you can see that like yeah, my character is stuck in that like mana spiral animation for a second before getting that next mana off. I'm pretty sure that hiccup is still like correct, because while you can avoid the hiccup a bit if you summon it earlier, you're dropping 4 hits, and I'm not sure like that hiccup, that amount of time is worth 4 hits. Yeah, it's like it's better to just hiccup and get the hits off. Yeah, so usually I prefer to summon this like once every like cycle of all 3 skills. And so since I'm on a -2 hat, that's like a 6.2 second summon. So even though the duration is 7 seconds, like I'm summoning it like 0.8 seconds early. I think it's pretty much fine, since it's otherwise hard to find like a consistent pattern for the summon. So personally, I just always summon it with Earth Dive, and then by the time I get back to Earth Dive, I'll summon it again. But yeah, so that's how I'd recommend summoning it. But if there's like downtime in the boss where it's like unhittable, then obviously you can just summon it whenever. I think the next thing I should talk about, or I'll do it in a different video or something. This was long enough. GG. That is my shitty explanation. Goodbye.